I am delighted to bring to the stage two individuals for a fireside chat to talk about how we take this learning and we span it across 5 generations. We are in a time where there are literally 5 different stages of life working in the same space. And sometimes we talk about how one does not understand the other and how one doesn't really want to work and how one works the old way. And how do we merge all that together to create a community where we can all just gel together and grow together? So it is my honor to welcome to the stage Sandy Torchia and Marcelo De Santis for their fireside chat.
Good afternoon, everyone. Do you hear me? Yes, you hear me, you hear me. So we are architects of growth. Repeat after me. This thing here, the podium, is an agentic AI podium. And it measures 2 things. It measures potential and performance. And now it's telling me that it has a lot of potential, but performance is pretty much subpar. So we are architects of growth. We are architects of growth. Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So really excited about being here, having this panel with all of you. You know, we're living in a fast-changing world and full of uncertainty, full of opportunity, but no doubt under constant disruption. Today, we will explore what it means under the lens of leadership, culture, and technology. We will discuss how to build great organizations by combining the best of human talent with the potential of artificial intelligence. So we are honored to be joined by a true leader in this space, Sandy Torchia, Vice Chair, Talent and Culture at KPMG. Let me tell you a little bit about Sandy, because it is impressive. Sandy leads the firm-wide talent strategy to attract, develop, and retain top talent. A 25-year KPMG veteran, Sandy previously served as National Managing Partner of the firm's multi-billion-dollar advisory practice and has held leadership roles across risk advisory, global IT risk, and business strategy. As a member of the firm's management committee, Sandy works with KPMG's leadership teams to unlock the power of its people. Pretty powerful, right? And improve employee and partner experiences. This includes overseeing all HR and cultural initiatives, including areas such as recruiting, performance and leadership development, learning, inclusion, and total rewards and well-being. Widely recognized for her impact, Sandy has been named one of the 50 most powerful Latinas by Alpha, a top 100 Hispanic IT executive by all of you, high tech, and a woman leader in consulting by Consulting Magazine. Last but not least, she also serves on the audit committee of the Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank, and is a board member of NAF, the national education nonprofit that promotes collaboration between schools and businesses to enhance student readiness. With that, join me in welcoming Sandy Torchia.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's start this conversation, which I'm extremely excited about it. Sandy, your experience is amazing. You're a rock star. And I was thinking about being the person that actually shapes talent and culture in an organization. And some people might see that as a strategic role. And I'm wondering if there is something about being an alchemist as being part of the role. So tell us a little bit about that role. And do you consider yourself a strategist or an alchemist?
Well, I might even choose a third one, Marcelo, which is a magician sometimes.
Oh.
I feel like I'm pulling things out of a hat every now and then. But first of all, it's so awesome to be here with you all and to share the stage with Marcelo. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. There's just so much change and uncertainty happening right now, and every single one of us plays a role in paving the path for the future. But back to your question, if I think about the difference between being a strategist and being an alchemist in a role like mine, I have to honestly say it's both. So Marcelo introduced me as the Vice Chair of Talent and Culture at KPMG, and essentially what that means is that I'm the CHRO for KPMG. We've got about 37,000 employees in the US, and I'm responsible for the entire talent supply chain life cycle, from recruitment all the way through to deployment of resources. So there's a lot happening from a disruption perspective in that entire chain, and we'll talk more about that later. But when I specifically think about the role that I have, strategist versus alchemist, when I stepped into this role 3 years ago, I was a consultant. As you said in the introductory comments, I was in our advisory practice for 25 years. I had served clients. My focus was technology risk. And one day I got a call from our CEO asking me if I was interested in being considered for the role as a CHRO. And I'll tell you, my first response was, did you call the wrong person? Because I'm not an HR professional. But when I started thinking about it, I said, you know what? Our CEO's goal was to better enable HR to help with the business strategy. So getting back to strategists, that was our number one goal, to reposition human resources to help achieve all of our business needs. And so that includes everything from having a talent strategy that aligns with the firm-wide business strategy, having the right people with the right skills in the right places, having the right processes and policies and protocols, from things like how we compensate our people to how we performance manage our people. All of those strategies had to align with the business strategy. So I think from that perspective, I would consider myself a strategist, and I would consider a role like mine to be a very strategic role. When I think about the other side of the coin, which is the alchemist, I view that as taking something ordinary and making it extraordinary.
Tell me more about that.
And so that is so important because that gets into culture, it gets into mindset, it gets into inspiration. All of these things that are important when you've got something good, but you want to transform it into something better. So that notion of taking something ordinary and making it extraordinary by mixing the individual pieces and doing it in a way that is authentic, that, you know, leverages the culture that we're really proud of at KPMG to be able to make it happen. So, Marcelo, I think the answer to your question is both. And sometimes you have to lean into one side of it versus the other. But I think the combination of those two things, and then I add in my magician, because you have to have some tricks up your sleeve to be able to get it done. I think that's what accomplishes the objectives.
What tricks do you have? Tell us.
Oh, that's a good one. You know, I think one of the biggest tricks, especially in today's age where it is so important to be authentic, it is so important to be transparent, is relationship capital. So when we're trying to get something done, when any of us are trying to get something done and you're rolling up your sleeves and you're thinking about how it's going to land, how it's going to motivate people, how it's going to change the organization that you're a part of, having strong relationships is key to getting that done. And I mean, it's obvious, we all know that, but you've got to be deliberate, investing time to be able to build and nurture those relationships.
The intentionality of people.
Yeah, very intentional with building relationships. And I will say, I can tell, just not having known you very long, you're really good at that because you've already, you know, done some things that have been impressive to me as it relates to building relationships.
Wow. Coming from you, I mean, I feel great. So thank you for that, Sandy. We're operating in this VUCA world, right? And you mentioned that you're leading 5 generations, right? What kind of challenges of opportunities do you face every day leading 5 different generations?
Yeah, you know, it gets more complex than just 5 generations, I think, and I'll get into that in a minute. But we kind of think about this in our firm as 3 big factors that are influencing the decisions we make around how we develop, motivate, and lead our people. One of them is things that are happening in the society. Another one is the evolving demands or interests of our workforce. And then the third one is just a change in workforce demographics. So I'll go through each of those and then tell you a little bit about how we're responding to those. But from a societal perspective, I think it's obvious that we're living in a world of uncertainty and a world where there's a lot of change. It was only very recently that we emerged from the global pandemic and faced a great resignation where we couldn't keep our people and we were hiring at really quick rates to replace the people that were leaving and to lean into growth. We emerged from the pandemic in a world where more people were continuing to work in a hybrid environment, and that was new to us. That wasn't something that many organizations had experienced before the pandemic. So, from a societal perspective, that's one of the things. Another thing is just the advances in technology. I know we've talked about that a lot during this conference today, but who would have thought that we would have had agents sitting side by side humans to get work done? Who would have thought that we would have things like ChatGPT and other tools on our desktops that would help accelerate how we work? And there's a whole host of considerations as it relates to talent associated with that societal change. There's also economic uncertainties that are ahead of us, political uncertainties that we're living in right now around the world. All of those factor into this bucket of societal changes that I'll talk about. The second bucket is this evolving workforce interests or workforce demands, the things that are important to your workforce. And we do a lot of surveying inside of our firm to understand what's on the minds of our employees. I monitor a lot of data that comes from other organizations. And while compensation is always a really important part of a value proposition to an employee, they're way more interested than ever in flexibility. They're very interested in purpose. They're very interested in mobility and having an opportunity to move around. And so all of those things need to factor in when we're thinking about how do you lead your workforce into the future. And then the last thing that I'll mention is demographics. Everyone has their own demographic data for the workforce that you're a part of, the workforce that you lead or manage. But there's some interesting things happening within our firm that I don't think are unique to our firm. So 57% of our workforce has been hired in the past 5 years. Wow. 57%. That's because we were dealing with the Great Resignation and we were hiring into growth. So 57% of our workforce has been with us less than 5 years.
Were they coming from the professional services industry or were...
It's a mix. Yeah, it's a mix. So we get many people from other professional services firm. We hire a significant amount of talent off of campus. And then we also hire folks that are coming from industry that are looking for more variety in their career. So it's a wide variety of backgrounds that we hire from. The other statistic that's interesting is 28% of our workforce is Gen Z. Obviously, if you would have looked at that 3 years ago, it would have been close to zero because that generation has been entering the workforce. And oh, by the way, as that generation has entered the workforce, they've experienced remote schooling in high school and or in college, and that impacts the way that they like to collaborate with others. I have a Gen Z stepdaughter, and she doesn't like talking to people. She doesn't like even calling for a pizza. And I would like, she's a sample of one, but it's very indicative of this generation. And there's a lot of factors that drive that. So this whole notion
I think they agree with that. I can feel it.
Yeah. This whole notion of, these shifting workforce demographics, including 5 generations of people working side by side. That's not necessarily new, but we have 5 generations working side by side. And as importantly, we have people that are in different seasons of their lives. This has always been a factor, right? Where you've got some people that are entering the workforce fresh out off of campus. You have some people that are starting families. You have others that are taking care of aging parents. So not only do we have 5 generations, we have people that are in different seasons of their lives. And what's important to you shifts over time, not just dependent upon the generation that you're in, but also dependent upon the season of life that you're in. So Marcelo, when we step back from that and think about, okay, what does that mean? What do we do with all this stuff? First of all, you have to understand it and be on top of it. But second of all, we have a firm-wide talent strategy, and it starts with our talent aspiration. I'm just going to read it to you because I think the words are powerful. It says, "Our people make the difference. So it's our mission to make the difference for them by focusing as much on their professional development and well-being as we do on the work." So that's, I think, very powerful. It talks about how our people are so important to us. And because they're so important, we're going to try to strike the right balance between the things that are important to them, their well-being and their professional development, and the things that are important to us, which is getting the work done. And so we've built a strategy that includes 4 pillars. It is lead at every level, thrive at KPMG, grow capabilities, and work smart. And we've got a lot of initiatives under all of those, but when we're focused on those 4 priorities and use that aspiration as our North Star, we know we're going to make the right decisions for our people.
Oh, amazing. Let me ask you a follow-up question on your mission. How do clients react to that?
Yeah.
What do they say?
You know, it's a great question, Marcelo. We don't actually talk to our clients about that mission. But what we do, and maybe we should, I see these reactions, maybe we should, but what our commitment is, you're going to get the best people, right? Because we're invested in their well-being, because we're invested in their professional development, because we care as much about them as humans, you're going to get the best people. And so that attracts people to our firm. It's our commitment to them as we develop them. And so, you know, we know that not every person that joins KPMG is going to retire from KPMG. And we want our KPMGers, well, that notion of lead at every level and building leaders for a lifetime, we're going to give you skills, we're going to help you be smarter, we're going to teach you how to work, and then you're going to do great things at KPMG or somewhere else. So we don't really tell our clients about our aspiration and our strategy, but they see it when our people show up at their doorsteps.
Excellent. Okay, so get your resume ready.
And if they're showing up at your doorsteps and you're not seeing it, definitely let me know.
So Sandy, I was reading this morning a World Economic Forum report, and it says that around 80% of companies consider agentic AI as a competitive advantage for their businesses, right? So you talk about 5 generations. Is there anything like a 6th generation in where the AI agent physically or virtually is sitting at the table? And how does that impact the business you do at KPMG?
Yeah, it's, you know, I'm going to say it's early days for that one, right? Agents are very recently on the scene, but we use agents in our work every day. And it's really fascinating to see the technology evolve from, you know, kind of being an assistant to being a tasker to being an automator, like moving up the chain in terms of what these agents can do. It's quite fascinating. And so we like to think about it as, in addition to having this multi-generational workforce that we've been talking about, it's also a multi-intelligence workforce. So different types of intelligence that are coming from this quote-unquote 6th generation of agents. It's not a replacement for people or even the same as people. It's a new type of team member. And thinking about agents as a new type of team member, we've got to tackle all of these things. And I honestly, I haven't found anybody that's doing it perfect yet. We're not either, because we're at the beginning of this journey. But when you think about the roles that agents play, when you think about the decisions that they're able to make, you think about the leadership that they might even provide, that's going to transform how we performance develop. We were actually having a conversation today with our executive team, and we were talking about whether or not we should adopt some of our existing processes like recruitment, like performance development, like resource management, and, you know, just put the agents in the system to say, okay, here's agent A, and agent A is available to be scheduled on a client. And so just like I'd schedule Marcelo as a human, I'd schedule that agent as a piece of technology.
KPMG agent,
yes,
right?
Yeah,
KPMG. As a
KPMG.
DNA of your organization.
Yeah, and they'll learn, we'll teach it our values. So those things we're still working out, but I think it's exciting to be able to have this multi-intelligence factor into how we plan for our workforce and how we leverage that to deliver solutions to our clients. This whole notion of what that means to the individual humans at the company, we have to learn to lead differently, right? We have to learn how to lead a team that's going to include humans plus technology. That's different than today. And I could get on a whole nother tangent, Marcelo, about the impact, well, I think we'll talk about this a little later, but the impact that that has on managers, because they're the ones that are going to have to be very focused on making sure that they're not only leading and managing the agents, but they're motivating the people, the humans that are working alongside them.
There is this company, Anthropic, right? It's one of the darlings of AI these days. And I was listening to the CEO talking, and he said that 50% of, let me check, yeah, 50% of all entry-level jobs will be replaced by AI, right? When we think about professional services, right, as an industry and your business, are your clients asking you to proactively replace people with agents, or not yet?
I'll say somewhat, right? So the expectation is that we as a professional services firm will leverage technology to not only deliver more efficiently, but also to provide better results. And so that's really important. So our clients want to know how we're leveraging technology to get our work done. So they're not necessarily asking for agents, but they're wanting to know how we're leveraging technology to get our work done. And the notion of the size and shape of your workforce changing, we do know that, like right now, we're a pyramid structure, right? Where we've got a lot of people at the bottom and it gets smaller as you get to the top. That's going to shift. And we're envisioning that it's going to shift to be more of a diamond. Some of us call it a fat diamond. We have to come up with a better name for that. It's going to shift. And so that means that we're going to need to be committed to reskilling and upskilling our people to make sure they have the right skills for the future. So I don't think that consulting is going to go away. Bad consulting is going to go away. Smart consultants that embrace the technology, that know how to use the technology to get better results, that know how to manage the technology, they're going to thrive in this environment. Our clients not only want speed, they want confidence. And we believe that having a human in the loop gives you the outputs that you need, and it also instills confidence in the equation, and that's really important. This notion of applying judgment, of being able to contextualize things, and also being able to navigate ambiguity, that's so important to our clients, and that means humans plus technology enable you to get all of those things. The human connection is also important as well, and when you're in a professional services world, we talked about relationships a few minutes ago, that's very important as well, and we don't think that's going to go away. We are working really hard to retool how we deliver our solutions to our clients. So while they're not necessarily asking for agents, they're expecting it, like I said, and we have an audit platform. It's a smart audit platform that includes Gen AI, it includes agents, it includes a lot of humans around it to be able to get faster, smarter, better, more intuitive results at the end of the day. Great.
So let me bring it back to leadership. You mentioned a few things about that. At one point, you said leading in this combined world of machines and humans is going to be different. If you had to build a program to enable your leaders at KPMG to be able to do that effectively in that scenario, what would be the top 5 characteristics that the leaders of this new paradigm we have to embrace?
I don't know if they've changed or will change significantly, but the emphasis on certain components is going to shift. So there's really 4 that I'll talk about, Marcelo. One is ethical leadership. That's table stakes, and that's always important. It's going to become more important as we think about trusted AI and bringing that human in the loop element that enables you to be able to rely on the output. So ethical is number 1, and it will continue in the area of importance going forward. The second one is dynamic. So dynamic leadership, being able to not only accept change, but thrive with change and being able to evolve yourself as your organization evolves. So dynamic leadership is really important too. Collaborative leadership, so we're better together, and that includes the technology. So the humans plus the technology, we're better together. That becomes increasingly important as well. And the last one that honestly we probably don't talk as much about is compassionate leadership. Because as we're navigating those societal changes that I talked about, as we're navigating the different types of expectations of a workforce, as we're navigating the different workforce dynamics, being a compassionate leader, leading with care is important too. And so managers are a very, very important resource for us to lean into to make sure that we're giving them the experiences, the training opportunities to build the skills in those 4 areas so that they can be effective going forward. You know, we look at our entire talent supply chain, I mentioned it a few minutes ago, from recruitment all the way through deployment of resources. And we know each step along the way is going to need to evolve to account for agents in our workforce, to account for, let's use recruiting as an example. As we're recruiting, we're likely going to need to recruit different types of skills. Not likely, we are already recruiting different types of skills.
Are you intentionally now recruiting different types?
Yeah, we're looking for different types of skills. And that's leading us to a conclusion that we might need to change our recruiting model so that, like right now, we recruit thousands of students from campus. I believe we're always going to recruit students from campus, but the shift between accounting majors versus technology majors, that's going to change a little bit. We're also looking at community colleges as a source for great talent going forward. And we're targeting high schools to get high school kids interested in a profession at a professional services firm like KPMG. So the types of students that we recruit is going to be different. The way that we recruit, we're already leveraging, we have a piece of technology called KPMG, K-A-I, KPMG AI. It is.
I like that.
It's based
branding.
It's based on a paradox tool, and it helps us essentially. If you're looking for a job at KPMG and you come to our landing page, you can ask it all kinds of questions, and it not only quickly answers your questions, but based on the things that it's heard from you, it can say, Marcelo, based on the types of questions you're asking and the way you're asking them, we think this job opening is really fit for you. So it improves the recruits' experience as they're first interacting with KPMG.
And you can use that also when you find opportunity, once the person is an employee, right? When you have to match a client request.
Absolutely.
Right?
So you're thinking about deploying talent into a need at a client. And you know, each of our KPMGers has a profile. We know what skills they have, we know what experiences they have, and using that to match that supply of talent to the demands of clients, that's absolutely something that Gen AI can help with.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to know more about that. So I know you know, beyond being an excellent executive, you are an athlete, I understand, a triathlete.
Yes.
Long distance runner, right? I mean, how much endurance sports help you to get to where you are today?
Marcelo, I think that being a marathoner and a triathlete is something that's given me a type of mental endurance that's really important for a career that is a long haul career, right? When I was younger, I was always like running towards the next thing as fast as I could. And I learned over time, and I think this is something that probably age has taught me more than being an endurance athlete, that sprinting is going to exhaust you. And so running a marathon, appreciating that life and career are definitely long in duration. And then when you have a setback, it's just that, a setback. You're going to learn from it, you're going to pick yourself up, and you're going to keep on going. And so this notion of a long-term mentality, and sometimes you have to sprint, sometimes you need these short bursts of energy for whatever it is that you're doing. But I like to take this longer, kind of focused on the end goal, knowing that if you continue to learn and grow and develop, you're going to get there over time.
Wow, inspiring. We're going to get into the final question, so you get your questions ready. I know you have many. Last question, typically Marcelo asks you to close your eyes.
So you want me to really close my eyes?
Yes.
All right.
So And you listen to me, obviously, right? It's not a meditation session.
I'm going to fall
Don't
asleep.
fall asleep.
Or fall out of my chair. One of
Yeah. So let's say it's 2035, around 10 years from now. Sandy Torchia is showcased at the cover page of the Times magazine. Your team reads that magazine. Your family reads that magazine. We all read that magazine. The next generation of leaders read that magazine. And there is a story, and obviously, there is a title for the story. What title do you want to see in the magazine, and why?
Can I open my eyes now?
Yes.
This is a tough one. You know, I don't know exactly what the title would be, Marcelo, but I think I know some words that I would hope would be part of that title. And one is authentic. And I'll bring this together. The other one is joy. And so being an authentic leader and being able to bring joy to people around me transforms humans, and it also transforms organizations, right? And I'll share a quick story with you if you don't mind.
Please.
Very early in my partner career, I worked for a gentleman, and I was probably in the sprint part of my career at this point in time. I was racing for the next thing, and he said to me that I was being too emotional with my leadership style. And it kind of stuck me in the heart because that's who I was. And I reflected on that and I said, you know what, if this is a place where I can't bring my emotions to my decision making, I'm not sure I want to be here. And so I started talking to others and everybody said, you know what, that's just him. That's not our firm. That's just him. And I reflected on it and I realized that was exactly the truth. It was just an individual. It wasn't indicative of our culture. And from that moment on, I really leaned into that part of who I was, an authentic leader that brings my heart into the equation as much as I bring my brain into the equation. And I also have been very focused on helping other people realize that they can be true to themselves as well. I want you to bring your best self to work. And that your best self is going to be different than my best self, and that's where the magic happens. So this notion of authenticity and joy and being able to leverage those two things to transform people and transform organizations, I hope that there's some version of that on the cover of Time magazine. I mean, that'd just be cool to be on Time magazine to start with, but if there's some words.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandy, for sharing the story. Thank you very much. So we will open now for your questions. And as always, we have two microphones, one here on the right, on the left. And please line up behind the microphone, not in front. Will not work.
You can ask Marcelo questions too.
Oh!
Please do.
Hi, Marcelo and Sandy. This is Fernando from NVIDIA. I'm on the hardware design world, and naturally I have an HR question. Where I was thinking, like, the one thing that for people unhappiness at a workplace, any workplace, it's not being recognized, or in other words, putting too much work and nobody caring, nobody, like, they feel they do too much and nobody notices, basically. And the other thing, the one thing that makes a person stay in a company is usually connections. What connections, it's what grounds you to a company, right? This is hard data, don't ask me where I got it from. So my question to you, it's how can companies use AI, which is counterintuitive? How can we, companies, use AI to leverage these so human traits where we can make our employees happy and keep them, because companies put a lot of work to get this talent, only to lose them 3-4 years down the line. So how can AI be leveraged to do so?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a couple of different things. First of all, thank you for that question. And the importance of exactly what you said, it's very near and dear to my heart. One thing, I'll give you an example of something that KPMG is doing. We leverage I'm not going to say AI because it's probably a older version of technology, but it will evolve to incorporate AI and eventually agentic technology. But we take data around, have our people taken PTO? How many hours are they charging every week? How many hours are they on Teams in meetings? How often are they coming in person? So we have all kinds of data around how you're working for each individual. We provide that data to the individual's performance manager. And we say, hey, Marcelo, Sandy's got a red flag because she hasn't taken any vacation. She hasn't, she's been charging too many hours. Go have a conversation with her to just understand, is there some intervention that's needed?
So this is linked to your intention to wellness and
Yeah, it's part of our wellness initiatives. And so it gives every performance manager a nudge to say, hey, your counselee is doing great. There's no reason to check in with them. Or there's some red flags and we would encourage you to have a conversation with them. And so when you get that nudge and you have a conversation with me, it's a way to do a couple of things, to check in and say, Sandy, I've noticed you haven't taken much PTO over the past quarter, 2 quarters, whatever. Is there something getting in your way? It's also a way to say, you know, it looks like you're doing very well on utilization. Thank you for your contributions to the firm and to the clients. You can recognize people, you can check in on them to see if there's an intervention that's needed in terms of the way that they work. And while we hope that this encourages, in my scenario, Sandy to take some PTO, at a minimum, it's going to show the individual that someone cares about the results that they're driving. So that's really important. You know, as you said, you want your manager to recognize the work that you're doing, to care about the work that you're doing, and this also demonstrates that you care about them as an individual. Back to that aspiration that I talked about earlier, we care as much about your professional development and well-being as we do about the work that you do. This is just an easy way to check in with individuals. We do a lot of listening. We have a continuous listening strategy where we are asking our employees every quarter things related to their well-being, to their engagement, their intent to stay, how do they feel about their compensation. Sometimes I don't like seeing the results, but I'm glad that we have the results because it gives us an ability to focus on certain areas. So that's another way we listen to our people to help bring solutions to the things that they're solving. I'll have debates, I don't know, once a month with leaders around our leadership table around what is the corporation's responsibility for well-being? What is the corporation's responsibility for joy, right? And we could spend hours talking about that debate because there's plenty of arguments on each side. I've taken the perspective in my role at KPMG that I want to make sure the work that you're doing is a net positive, that it's not a net negative. I don't purport that KPMG is going to make you the most joyous person in the world, but I do want to make sure that we're not draining the energy from you through the work that you do. That was a lot, so hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you, Sandy. Let's go this side.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wendy. I work at Palo Alto Networks on the internal communications team. I think you maybe answered my question a little bit already with what you just said. But as an internal communications comms person, I think one of our biggest challenges that my team and I face is that people's attention spans are really short right now. And quite frankly, a lot of people just don't read. So I guess my question, is, how do you see communication transforming for us to meet employees where they are? I think nowadays, at least with my generation, TikTok is a really big thing. Everybody consumes like video or just digital format communications. So I guess my question would also be, how are you leveraging AI to keep the messaging authentic and engaging, like you mentioned, but also to ensure that our employees are motivated, informed, and connected to a positive workplace culture?
I'm going to tell you, if I could answer that question, I'd be on the cover of Time magazine tomorrow. It's a really challenging question to answer, and we've been doing a lot of experimentation on what is the best mechanism for enabling people to consume information. There's nothing more frustrating than spending a lot of time to produce some type of content and nobody listens to it, nobody views it. And I don't have an answer to your question, but I'll tell you, experimenting with different types of ways to provide information to people and knowing that there's not just one solution, because when we have 5 generations of people working together, the way a baby boomer wants to consume information is very different than a way a Gen Zer wants to consume different information, and everywhere in between. So there's not a one-size-fits-all strategy. We've started, we have an internal kind of Facebook site, we have videos, we have emails, we have, I believe we have too much, to be quite honest, but when you spread it across all the different communication mediums, you're going to meet the needs of individual people that like to consume information differently. So I know I didn't give you a complete answer to your question. I don't know if anybody has an answer to your question, but I would say experiment and make sure you're using multiple modes of communication to be able to reach broader audiences. I'll share a quick story with you. I had written a communication recently, and it was in a casual tone, because that's me and that's how I talk.
Authentic.
Yeah, there you go. And actually, my comms team wrote it for me, and they know my style, so they wrote this communication. And then we sent it out to some folks, and they're like, "You're going to send this to the firm? This doesn't sound like our typical KPMG communication." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's coming from me, so let's do it." It hasn't gone out yet, but it's going to, and I'll let you know how people respond to it. Thank you.
So we have time for one more question. And go this side, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Rick Pena, Inspired Solutions, a Dominican kid from Brooklyn. Marcelo, you did a great job. All right, so Sandy, here's the question. The gentleman earlier from Verizon that mentioned the punch cards, I know that went over most people's heads. If the young people in this room actually Google that, they would be amazed at how we interfaced with technology years ago. But so there are levels and levels of innovation, and there's been cycles of transformation, but at the end of the day, humans are still in the loop. Wall Street Journal wrote an article years ago that said that every business was a technology business. And I like to say that every business is still a people business, right? We're still in the people business. So that said, I'm not gonna ask you to close your eyes. If everybody in this room was 25 and under, right? There's a lot of debate over whether or not these digital natives are ready for the workforce. I think that they're tremendously prepared. So if they're 25 and under, everybody in this room is in that demographic. What do you say to them to reinforce to them that they are ready? Obviously, you have a lot of data. What would you say that the data is saying about their level of preparedness for today's environment?
Well, I can tell you exactly what our data is telling us. That's a great question. This is hot off the press, something that we just got within the last week or so. Our associates, which would fit that demographic that you just described, our associates are telling us through the surveys that we do, as well as other data that we review, they are the most motivated, and they are using our tools more than anyone. They also are charging more hours than anyone, and they're coming in the office more than anyone. So this cohort of associates at KPMG, they're motivated, they're working hard, they're feeling good about the work that they do, and actually the other thing I didn't mention, their well-being indicators are stronger than others. So there's some type of correlation between all of that, and I don't know if it's a bit of a chicken and an egg, right? Is it because they're motivated that drives them to want to come in the office more, to want to use the technology more, or is it because they're using the technology more and because they're coming in the office more that's making them more motivated? So this cohort of individuals are the ones that are using the technology, they're getting a lot done. Oh, and one other indicator I didn't mention, they are charging more hours, but they're working on more clients. So they're getting more done with less time, even though they're charging more hours. So that's the future. That's the future. They're embracing it, and they're better because they're embracing it.
Well, Sandy, Torchia, authentic leader, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's great being here.